No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this evening on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good evening, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show presented by Play Now with Dave Manouk, with Ezra Ginsburg. I'm your host, Drew Mandel, here to discuss another game by the Winnipeg Jets where the effort is acceptable by and large, but the results for many people, including the Jets themselves, are not, as they drop yet another game to lose 3-1 to the Dallas Stars. That is 3 defeats in a row for the first time this season for the Winnipeg Jets. They went into Dallas. They knew it was going to be an uphill climb without Nikolai Ehlers in the lineup, and they played hard and they gave it all, but it turned out to be too little for the Winnipeg Jets to come up on the winning side of the ledger in tonight's contest. Gentlemen, good to see you both on this now Sunday evening. I think from the Winnipeg Jets perspective, they're disappointed in tonight's results. They're probably accepting of the effort by and large, but I think more than anything else, they are thrilled to be heading back to Winnipeg, albeit just for the one game, but they're thrilled that this 6-game road trip comes to an end with a disappointing record of 2 wins and 4 losses. Good to see you guys on this Sunday night.
Yeah, good to see you boys as well. Thanks for everybody for watching. Obviously not the result the Jets wanted, as you just mentioned, Drew, but good on us as well, boys. We did 5 shows this week. That's 5 shows in 7 days. So,
no travel though. There no travel for us though. So, we don't have to worry about time zones. We didn't have to worry about anything like that. No travel.
You traveled from the basement up to your fridge at one point, Drew, I believe.
That's
so
true.
there's a little bit of traveling. You got a few steps in, but just not enough offense tonight, guys. And obviously, I think what summed up this game was Scheifele's chance to the right of Jake Ottinger late in the game with the extra man. Yeah. And it looked originally like Ottinger made the save, but Scheifele actually hit the side of the net, right? And obviously, you had Neil Pionk. He had a couple of good scoring chances late in that game. I thought the Nemesnikov line was good. It was an interesting flip, guys, in the third period. And, a couple of games ago against the LA Kings, we rightly gave Drew credit for saying that was a game in which I think the line blender should have come out. And to me, this was another game where after that shakeup was made, where you had Nemesnikov and Velarde flipping on the top 2 lines, you saw some chances right after that, right? You had Hayden Fleury had a scoring chance. Scheifele found him. Scheifele was behind the net. Hayden Fleury had a scoring chance. Obviously, guys, Logan Stanley ends up sitting a little bit there. You saw Josh Morrissey.
We'll talk about Stanley throughout the course of tonight's post-game show, let me tell you.
Right. And I mean, it's Captain Obvious to say that you can't take 3 minor penalties and you're already a defenseman where you're under the microscope, right? Like we talked about it on yesterday morning show, boys. I think, we all agreed there was a good chance Heinola was going to come in. Instead, they take Dylan. If it was between who played better between Dylan Coghlan and Logan Stanley, I'm not talking about the analytics. I'm talking about just anybody that watched that game between the Jets and the Golden Knights. Coghlan was impressive, right, on the second power play unit. Yeah. Anyways, that wasn't the only reason they lost the game, but obviously, it contributed to it because Stanley just, again, a defenseman like him, he can't be taking those types of minor penalties, right? And I agree with what Kevin Sawyer said on the broadcast. I think his second penalty was a slash, if I'm not mistaken. That was a little bit. It was or a cross check, I think.
It was a
cross checking, and it was a little bit weak. But regardless, guys, like the Jets had 7 high danger chances in the game, 5 of which were in the second period. They didn't have a single high danger chance in the third period. And obviously, at that point, Drew, they're just trying to get the point, get it to overtime. But I just didn't think, they were dangerous enough tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could see, they were struggling. Dallas was controlling the middle of the ice better than the Jets were. And so the Jets were looking to, try and generate. And, of course, the goal that they score, which we'll get into the Play Now game recap, is more, I would argue, as good fortune than it is a tremendous goal. Now, it still counts the same on the score sheet, so the Winnipeg Jets will take it. But I thought that, for the most part, again, like we saw, similar to the Vegas game, Dallas tonight controlled the flow of the game. They were the better of the two teams. I think you're seeing a lack of depth on the Winnipeg Jets defense in particular rear its ugly head. You're talking about a left side of the defense right now that is simply really not up to par at an NHL level behind Josh Morrissey. Hayden Fleury, I'm not criticizing him. Hayden Fleury, again, I thought was fine tonight.
Yeah, I was really impressed by Hayden Fleury. That was maybe his best game as a Jet, right out there on the penalty kill.
He stepped up when the Jets needed him to.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. He stepped up. I got no problem with Hayden Fleury's game, but you're seeing the lack of really that next layer of player, Dave, to be able to step up when the Jets need somebody. You're seeing the lack of depth on the back end right now. I mean, okay, let's get into, I guess, the decision to play Logan Stanley over Ville Heinola tonight, and what Mike McIntyre, who's on the road trip in Dallas, and is going to speak to Scott Arniel, I'm sure, about it, and we'll bring you those comments if we can on tonight's post-game show. He said that with Heinola, I mean, again, hasn't played a lot of hockey at all in the last couple of years. It seems he was speculating that it was a bit of a load management decision to have Stanley back in the lineup tonight again versus Heinola. And maybe that's the case, and maybe Scott Arniel will say that, and we'll find out, and then maybe it makes a little bit more sense. But on its face, for an organization and a dressing room that preaches accountability, Logan Stanley seems to be the only player who's not particularly accountable for his lack of performance on the ice. He continues to get chance after chance and leash after leash when it's evident that he's just not up to snuff. And I know that the Jets have injuries, and I know that the Jets are banged up, but at some point in time, you have to figure out an alternative rather than continue to keep putting out a substandard option like you have right now in Logan Stanley.
Look, let's just put it to the bottom line. The bottom line is the Jets are 3-6-0 in their last 9 games. After, getting off to that red hot start, 15-1, the slide is real. And part of that reality is you're losing a guy in Dylan Sandberg in that game against Nashville that we're now learning you could ill afford to lose in this lineup because there's just not enough depth. And we've talked about that. You don't have it on the farm right now. Like I said, the guys there, Elias Salamonson, he looks steady, but he's not. And again, that's a right side situation, not a left side.
You got lots of depth on the right side right now.
Yeah, you're not worried about the right side, but it's that left side, or can a guy go over? But right now, the Jets are struggling, and I agree with Ezzy. This is a team that was desperate to get into overtime. I mean, they just looked like in that third period, and we can look. There's no. Drew and I talked about it before we really got underway. This has been a ridiculous schedule. I mean, again, and I'm not here to criticize and blame the schedule for the Jets' ill fortunes, but it's crazy to think they played those 3 games on the road, New York, and then 2 in Florida, came home for the 1 against Florida, went back on the road for 6. Now they're home for St. Louis on Tuesday, and then back on the road for 2. It's just very unusual. I can't ever recall seeing one like that.
For those keeping track, that's 11 road games and 2 home games in their last 13.
Yeah, it's a very, but they knew it. They knew, and again, as I would mention, because I mentioned this before, this is also the same team that had the benefit of a very easy schedule to come
I was just going to say that here because there were no back-to-backs in October. It was an easy schedule. I think they had 1 playoff team in the first 10 games, right? So there's no doubt that it's been a difficult schedule, guys, but at the end of the day, you easily could have got a point, let alone 2 points against Vegas, and you easily could have got a point in this game. Right. Yep. So I mean, for all this
don't give up late goals in both of those games and you're heading into overtime.
Sure. And it's easier said than done to say, don't give up a third period goal. And I'm not trying to be contrarian here with Dave. I'm just saying that, every team is going to go through patches of the schedule that are more difficult. Every team's going to go through parts of the schedule that are easier. Right. But there's no doubt that, anybody watching this team, the Jets, that is, could see that they looked a little slow at times tonight. And I'm not saying that just because Nick Ehlers is out of the lineup. I think they were looking sluggish against the Kings. They were looking sluggish against the Wild. Remember the first period, guys? What were the shots in that first period against the Wild? Like really lopsided, whatever it was, 17-5, or it doesn't matter. But the point is, I still think that even though they won that game 4-1, they were pretty lucky to get out of that game with the 2 points, because I thought Minnesota was the better team for at least half of that game. But that's the way hockey is. But yeah, I mean, this is obviously a disappointing road trip. It was a difficult road trip. It started off well, obviously with the win against Pittsburgh. But I look, I know it's hard to maybe rationalize what's happening, but like Mark Scheifele is just not the regular Mark. Did he have a point on this road trip?
No, he hasn't had a point in his last 6 games now. He
right.
was
and he had that chance. Like he had some chances. Like
right.
he was noticeable. That line wasn't bad, Drew. But all I'm saying is like, if your top line is not going, then obviously it puts a lot of pressure on the Nemesnikov line. That line was fine tonight. They had some opportunities.
Well, what I couldn't help, you mentioned that, the shot, the attempt, where he hits the side of the net. I couldn't help but think, if he's healthy.
Oh yeah, he scores.
Does Mark Scheifele score on that goal? Because
usually that's automatic, Drew.
That's a pretty good setup. That that's the look that you want in that instance.
If he one times it, he also probably has a better chance.
Right. I mean, that he got the
because Ottinger had no chance if he doesn't stop it.
Right.
Again, he shot it wide, but if he doesn't stop it, if he one times it, the pass was slightly behind him. But if he does one time that's into the back of the net. I mean, and we've seen Mark Scheifele score that how many times? That's how you know he's not right. And so to me, that's the biggest question mark is, with respect to Mark, is the fact that do you serve him better? And again, hopefully it'll be a question. We get a chance to talk to Scott O'Neill on Tuesday for the first time in what feels like months, but we'll get a chance to talk to him about the health of his club and where it serves them better to try and give a guy a little bit of because we talked about it after the Kings game. We thought Mark Scheifele looked a little bit better, but he just doesn't look himself. There's no question about it. And so that is the problem. And when he's not himself, I don't care if he's your top winger now, Ezzy, wink, wink, or if he's your top center, he's got to be one of your best players. And one of the comments that I saw
on this road trip, I apologize.
Okay. And one of the comments that I saw in the chat, and there were actually numerous comments, and they're accurate. We can pillory the defense all we want, but this Jets team isn't scoring goals. And this was the highest scoring team in the NHL by a mile. They had like 70 goals before most teams had 50. So the Jets were scoring a ton, and now they're not. And that's obviously a big factor as to why they're not winning hockey games, says Captain Obvious.
Yeah, no question about it. The offense is drying up. The defense is struggling. The penalty kill was great tonight as it happened. It had to be. But
that was actually excellent.
Yeah, the penalty kill was great tonight. So if you want to look for the silver lining, that's that. So you knew that there's going to be adversity, throughout the course of the season. The Jets currently are facing that adversity. Now, it sounds like they dodged a bullet by and large with Nikolai Ehlers only being day-to-day. Now, we've all seen instances where day-to-day turns out to ultimately be a little bit longer than day-to-day, but for the time being, we'll take them at their word that it is a day-to-day injury, and he sounds like he was, maybe close to playing. If this had been a playoff game, maybe he's in the lineup, or if this had been a more of a must-win situation, maybe he's in the lineup for the Jets tonight against the Dallas Stars. So it sounds like you dodged a bit of a bullet there. But right now, if you're the Jets, I think you're sitting back, you're looking at this 3-game losing streak. You're saying, okay, you have to take this opportunity to sort of reevaluate your now go-forward plan until the 21st of December. You got 3 weeks between after tonight's game, now that you've lost, until you get the break. So you get the break on the 23rd of December after you play Toronto. So you're talking about, 3, 7, 10. You got 11 games from now until you get the 4 days off. How do you get through these 11 games? How do you grind through these 11 games? Because obviously you've lost 3 in a row. That ain't good. That's not a good start. You need to find a way to get back into the win
Drew,
column.
It's more, and again, I'm not saying this to, annoy you or anything like that, but it's that you've lost 6 of 9. Right? Like it's not just
Minnesota's caught you.
Well, and also, I go back to that game. I don't care what anybody says. I think Minnesota was the better team in that game. So the reason why I mentioned that is no, but what I'm saying, why I'm mentioning that, Dave, is because, I mean, it's not like you would say, oh, Minnesota, that game the Jets were amazing in that game. And that was the one game you could point at. I mean,
they were amazing in the third period of that game. That was it.
Right. And they completely shut down the Wild, if everybody remembers correctly. They were amazing against Pittsburgh, but I think the entire league has been amazing against Pittsburgh this year. But to your point, Drew, I mean, things are compounding, right? Like the Sandberg injury, it started off. Then the Ehlers injury. Obviously, the Jets are getting into the harder part of the road trip. Like everything seemed to just get harder and harder as this road trip progressed. Their play didn't improve like you'd like to see. Like we talked about it was a relatively good bounce back effort against the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights are good, but we talked about how hard it was for the Jets really to get inside. And look, this Dallas Stars team with their like Miro Heiskanen, you guys know I've talked about him so much over the years. Top 10, maybe top 5 defenseman in the league. Thomas Harley, like Esa Lindell, like they've got big defensemen, and they're deep at forward, right? Like Jamie Benn is an arch nemesis. Obviously, the Marchment Duchesne Seguin line was really good tonight, right, guys? So I mean, it's the first. We talked about it on yesterday's show. This is the first stretch of the year where the Jets are starting to look human. After you start the season with 15 wins in the first 16 games, it almost looks like you're indestructible, right? Well, now we've seen that the Jets have played some really good teams on the road, and they're human, and they have things that they need to work on.
Well, that's the question, though. I mean, I think it's a legitimate one, is where do the reinforcements come from for the Winnipeg Jets at this point in time? Dave is right. You've lost 6 of your last 9 games, including tonight's 3-1 defeat to the Dallas Stars. This is the Illegal Curve post-game show. It's presented to you by Play Now. We do this after each and every Winnipeg Jets game, and we'll get into the Play Now game recap coming up momentarily here. But where do the reinforcements for this Winnipeg Jets team come from? You have a Mark Scheifele who is banged up. You have a Dylan Samberg who's out of the lineup at least through the end of this month. Even the most rose-colored glasses wouldn't expect Dylan Samberg back in the next 4 weeks or so. Nikolai Ehlers is missed tonight's game. So where do the reinforcements come from? And that is where the Winnipeg Jets need to sort of find that answer. Now, the effort is still there, so you like that part. This was a game where, would anyone have been shocked if the Jets really sort of got blown off the ice tonight in Dallas? I wouldn't have been. End of the road trip, no Ehlers, no Samberg, difficult, blah, 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 blah. So the effort was still there, which is, I think, an important thing that they can lean on. They can lean on that. They haven't really lost a lot of their structure and their approach. The LA game was obviously a terrible game, and they've bounced back since that LA game with 2 pretty decent games, but unfortunately neither of those games resulted in any points. So it is a results-oriented business, as we all know, and we like to use that cliche. So the question is, on Tuesday against St. Louis, where do they find that inner drive to get back onto the good side of where they were, earlier on in the year, as opposed to the slump they've been in over the last 9 games? And I don't know that there's an easy answer for that. I don't know. Ville Heinola's status is, to me, a big question mark now. Does the team feel they can play him regularly? Because if they don't, that leaves Logan Stanley as your only option, unless you're airlifting an option in via a trade or via a waiver claim or via some other method. And clearly, I don't think Logan Stanley is the answer. Forget about the 3 penalties in tonight's game. He still isn't the answer that's going to sort of drag this Jets team back to victory. Not that I know that Ville Heinola is either, but I know that Stanley isn't. There's a difference there, of course. So to me, the question moving forward is, where does this Winnipeg Jets team find their winning ways again? How do they find it, short of Connor Hellebuyck being superhuman night in and night out?
Well, if those were easy answers, we would all be head coaches in the NHL.
Of course,
right?
but that's Scott Arniel and that's right. Kevin Shoveldale.
No, and you mentioned it. You mentioned it's not an easy answer, right? Obviously, the Jets have been a very good home team. They've been a very good team in division, right, Dave? That was only their second loss of the year, 8-2 or whatever it is, 9-2 on the season in the Central Division, right? So that's one thing. Good at home, good in division, and obviously, they're going to get the benefit of sleeping in their own beds for a long time. It seemed like this road trip, I don't know about you. I think a lot of Jets fans are just happy this road trip is over. It seemed like the Jets were on the road for a month here. And again, I think it was the multiple time zones and the fact that you were playing difficult teams. So look, the Jets are a difficult team to play against when they're at their best. And I think, that's what stands out to me. Dave mentioned it earlier. There wasn't that same offensive, I said, dangerousness. That's what stood out to me. And as part of that to do with the fact that they're banged up, possibly, but to me, when the Jets are at their best, and I've said this so many times before, it's when they're playing that pressure game. And you hear about this all the time with forechecking. Why do coaches constantly say that forechecks, an effective forecheck is necessary? Why is it, boys? Well, it's because you're putting pressure on the other team and hopefully creating turnovers and spending more time in their zone and creating offense off of that, right? And that's just something that I don't think we've seen enough. We saw that a little bit from the Lowry line. We saw it a little bit from the Nemesnikov line. The fourth line was fine, but like I don't think we're seeing that. Like we're not seeing that consistently enough. Waves and waves and waves. I think the Jets have not dictated the pace of play in enough of these games. Like this was guys not a high event game. Let's be honest here.
Right.
You know, we've said this over the years. This was more of a grinder, like the LA game. This wasn't as much back and forth.
This wasn't a skating game. This wasn't a track meet by any stretch.
No, it wasn't. You're right, Drew. And we saw there was no shortage of chances. Right, Rupe Hintz had that breakaway in the third period, and then he went backhand and missed the net. Obviously, we'll get into the Mason Marchment goal. I mean, that was just a great individual effort. Josh Morrissey was there with them the entire time. But all I'm saying, guys, is like that is to me, if I'm looking at this road trip on a macro level, and I'm looking at the game against the Wild and against the Kings and against the Golden Knights, and then the game tonight against the Dallas Stars, like they didn't look like the dangerous team that was keeping the opposition on their heels. That's what I didn't see enough of, right? Like Kyle Connor, he was putting the puck on the net a little bit. They had some chances. We talked about Neil Pionk. He had a great game. I think he ended up with 3 or 4 blocks. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he played the most out of any defenseman. He was at 27 and a half minutes. So, let's give Neil Pionk some stick taps for his performance tonight. But it just wasn't enough. And I like how many of those periods, without looking at natural stat trick, like how did the Jets win any period tonight? Like, I don't think they did.
Not if they did.
Certainly not the first.
Yeah, maybe the second, Dave. But like, they took a lot of uncharacteristic penalties. They did kill off all 5 power plays.
Right.
So you got to give the PK credit. But to me, they look too passive, and they just don't look like the same connected team that is dangerous and keeping the other team on their heels, like I said.
Well, I want to get into the game recap, and I'm going to start the game recap, Dave. I'm going to read a quote from Jets head coach Scott Arniel and speaking to Mike McIntyre after tonight's game that I think is going to be very interesting for us to weigh in on and for some of the commenters to touch their base on as well in the chat, as this is the Illegal Curve post-game show. So let's get into the game recap.
The Play Now game recap.
Big thanks to our friends at Play Now for their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey and the Illegal Curve post-game show. Sign up for Play Now and get a casino welcome bonus up to $150. Play Now is Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site and the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Conditions apply, 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. So Mike McIntyre, as we've mentioned, and Mike himself has mentioned, has been on the road trip crisscrossing North America with the Jets. He finishes the road trip in Dallas today. He talked to Scott Arniel after the game about the decision to play Logan Stanley, who took 3 minor penalties in today's game. Here's the quote. He's not going to get any better sitting in the press box. And then I think this next line is the real juicy part for everybody.
Ooh.
He needs to be in our top 6. Arniel went on to say also that he, quote, needs to stay out of the box. But it's that second sentence I want Dave to start to touch on. He needs to be in our top 6. Do you believe the Jets head coach at face value there? Or is he just trying to sort of boost up a player who had a bad game? Is Logan Stanley in the minds of the Winnipeg Jets and their coaching staff and the brain trust the key third pairing left side defenseman in their top 6? Because if you believe the head coach and that quote, that's what he's saying.
Well, I mean, for the record, I would imagine that they're looking at what they've done. And what we've always talked about is, you cannot anticipate that in playoffs, you're going to have a healthy team. So you need to know that, hey, if we lose player X, we're not going to be exposed the way the Jets have been exposed of late. And of course, you could say, look, it's a number of things coming together to put the Jets into a detrimental position in the sense that Mark Scheifele's injured, no Nikolai Ehlers, but I mean, although that was only really the last game, obviously Scheifele for longer. But the fact of the matter is, defensively, like I do not think if I know what the Jets think Logan Stanley is going to be and why they want him to be what they want him to be, which they've wanted him to be for 8 years now, but he's not that. He just isn't. Now, do I think that Logan Stanley could come in as a 7th defenseman and play occasionally? I do. I think he's capable. Do I think that Logan Stanley is key to being in your top 6? No, I do not. I don't think that if you're a legitimate Stanley Cup contender, because he doesn't do the things you need him to do. I'm sorry. It's just like, and you can say that the penalties called against him weren't great. Well, the third one was just a function of Logan Stanley just not reading the play right, putting himself out of position, and then taking a penalty. And it's just an unfortunate situation. And look, he's not a whipping boy for me. I've covered him since he was with the Moose and obviously up with the Jets. I have no personal animus towards him, but I think that if you're looking at what is a Stanley Cup contending team with aspirations to be that, you look at he's not fleet of foot enough. His decision-making is a little bit slow. And ultimately, at the end of the day, he's just not one of those guys in your top 6 if you're a Stanley Cup contender. That's my assessment, Ezzy.
Absolutely. And I agree with you for the most part, Dave. And Drew asked us the question. So we're not blaming Logan Stanley for this loss, and we're not blaming Logan Stanley for the loss against the Golden Knights. We're just talking about him specifically because he's struggling out there. And I agree with Drew. At this point in the season, in his career, we know what he is. Like, he's 26 years old or 25 or 26 years old. Like, we know what he is. I don't think that there's this different player that's going to emerge the more you play him. And guys, like, just kind of.
And I think that's the important part you touch on there, Ezzy, is that there's not another level for him at this point. He had his best season, when it looked like maybe
when he scored those 2 goals against Montreal in the playoffs,
right, in the bubble year. It
was my best Chris Farley impression. Like, remember when you were in the Beatles?
Remember when you were in the Beatles? Yeah, that was awesome.
Like the reality is he's not becoming Zdeno Chara, which is a big concern. What the big concern is if they lost him and then some other team turned a diamond into, coal into a diamond.
And you know what? And if he does become Zdeno Chara on another team, good for him and good for that other team. I don't care.
Have you met the most risk-averse general manager in the NHL in Kevin Cheveldayoff?
Well, I mean, I don't care how many minutes they give him. He's not going to become Zdeno Chara here in Winnipeg. He's not going to become Zdeno Chara anywhere. I mean, we know that.
Well,
but
Zdeno Chara is a Hall of Famer. I mean, let's pump the brakes on the Zdeno Chara just because he's 6'7". But
I think that's the only reason. I think that's the only reason you're making that comparable, right?
Yeah,
I would settle for him becoming Tyler Myers. I mean, Zdeno Chara was,
he's not Tyler Myers either.
I know he's not Tyler Myers. He doesn't have Tyler Myers. When Tyler Myers, obviously Myers is at the end of his career. They're both big, tall guys, but Myers had offensive upside.
Myers was good on Vancouver, though, Drew. He's been serviceable.
He's been serviceable. He's not a physical defenseman. He's just tall, just like Stanley is not a physical defenseman. He's just tall. He never had the offensive upside either. So, I mean, to say that you need him in your top 6, with all due respect, every other good team, that you're going to be facing come playoff time, or if you go win a round, is happy to see Logan Stanley in your top 6 because they know that that's somebody who can be taken advantage of.
Well, you're right, Drew. And the reality is the Jets have way more video than we don't watch the video of every single shift like the Jets team does. And they have access to more advanced stats than we do. And the advanced stats are not good. Just go if you want to see some advanced stats, just go to Garrett Hole's Blue Sky page, and he was talking about Logan Stanley's career expected goals and goal differential and everything like that. And again, we're not here to just pick on Stanley, but to me, what's so frustrating about this is again because of what it does with Ville Heinola, and it prevents him from coming into the lineup by insisting on playing on Heinola's better than Stanley, a better option than Stanley at this point, but yet the Jets, for whatever reason, keep thinking that Stanley is a better option. So again, what are we doing here with Ville Heinola, right? He's healthy now. He's ready to play. He's not going to be playing for the Moose anymore. He can't accomplish anything more in the American Hockey League. So again, you drafted Ville Heinola in the first round. So is this a situation where you're playing one first round pick because you don't want to give up on him over another first round pick? I think it ultimately, I don't think that, by the way, but I just think that they look at Stanley, and I don't know if it's because Dallas is a big kind of, they're not necessarily a heavy team, but they're a big team. I don't know if that factors in, but if that is why they're playing him, then that's the wrong decision. Heinola should be playing, and especially with Dylan Samberg, Dave, out of the lineup now, this is finally Ville Heinola's time to shine. whether that's on the third pair or the second pair, whatever. I just I scratch my head and I just don't know, like, what's the plan with Heinola? Is he a guy that you envision part of the organization long-term? Because I think they do.
He has to be in the lineup on Tuesday. Sorry, Dave. But if Heinola is not in the lineup on Tuesday, then then I give up almost to some extent. Then there's no, how do you preach accountability to the dressing room if you're not if Stanley can have the game that he had tonight and he's still in the lineup on Tuesday, assuming Heinola is healthy. If Heinola is not healthy, then say he's not healthy, and then then this is the best option you have. But if you tell us that he's healthy, that means he's got to be in your lineup, because it was Scott Arniel himself. It wasn't us saying it. It was Scott Arniel himself who said that Ville Heinola needs to be playing regular minutes and needs to be given a long runway, and that Scott Arniel's got a lot of time for Ville Heinola. It wasn't us who said it. It was the coach himself. So we got to take him at his face value, unless he's just trying to blow smoke left, right, and center.
Sorry, I'm trying to rationalize Dom's comment about Johnny Kovacevic not being an integral part of the, as if he was a menial guy who's barely making it. So I was in the middle of replying to Dom, but anyways, I'll finish my response to Dom after. But yeah, no, I mean,
focus on this, not that.
Well, I am, but I mean, I like to focus on the chat too, especially when you two are blathering on for your minutes and minutes and minutes. So, I mean, you already got my take anyway, so I'm not really certain what you need from me more. But I think that what doesn't make sense to me, like, you gave Logan Stanley, did he play 11 straight games? Was it 11 straight?
Something like that.
After his injury, obviously he had his injury.
Right.
So
then he came in for Fleury, and then he played.
Right. I think he played like 11 straight, and then he had his injury again. But my point is, you gave him a window. You gave him an opportunity. You gave him runway to say, okay, here you go, Logan Stanley. Here's 11 games.
Win the job.
Win the job. Don't let us take you out. Do what you need to do to solidify this as your spot. Well, he obviously didn't, because the team, he got injured, I guess. But then ultimately,
he didn't do anything in those 11 games to make you say that's his job.
I think that's what it comes down to. And so you're sitting there going, and I know that teams will look at that and say, well, listen, like, he didn't lose the job because of play, but because of his injury. And so we're giving it back to him. And then if his play is, deteriorating, then we'll take him out and that sort of thing. I don't think his play was particularly good. And I think that you need to give, again, it's not about Ville. I don't really give a shit about Ville Heinola, quite frankly. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to evaluate as a team what you've got, because what you don't want to be doing in April, boys, is having a conversation about what do we have in Ville Heinola? What if we need to use Ville Heinola as our fourth defenseman or fifth defenseman or sixth defenseman? You don't want to be having that conversation because you're playing the Colorado Avalanche in the first round and player X is no longer available to you. And now we got to figure it out because we need to know what Ville Heinola is. So this is your time to throw him in, play him for 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row, and see what you got. And all the people in the chat who are like experts, who would, similar to us, who would say, this is what he is, you'll find out. You'll be able to see. You'll be able to evaluate that. To me, that's what it's all about. It's about evaluation. It's not about, like, again, I don't have a player that I'm favoring one over the other.
I am.
Well, sure, but I don't. I don't really care. I'm completely removed from it, other than just to say, from a perspective of someone who wants you want to have the most fulsome information you can possibly have. And I think that's right now is uncertain with respect to Ville Heinola at the NHL level for a significant period of time.
I'm 100% with Drew. If Ville Heinola doesn't play on Tuesday, then that's more absurd than him not playing tonight against Dallas.
I agree.
Like, it's enough. It's enough with this. I mean, it's unanimous. Like, ring the bell. It's over. Everybody saw, again, Logan Stanley, I think, has a future as a pro hockey player. And I think he's a guy, like I've said this before, I think Stanley, if you play him against some of the weaker competition in the NHL in a third pairing role, and he plays 12 to 15 minutes a game, he can be fine. I think when you put him in situations where he plays against some of the top teams, then you see his difficulty. He turns the puck over. He takes penalties. His lack of foot speed hurts him. So it's enough. I think we've already beat a dead horse here, guys. But yeah, it would be mind-boggling if Heinola doesn't go back in Tuesday, I think, Dave.
Something we can talk about then when we get back together Tuesday night on the Tuesday edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. The Jets open the scoring, which is exactly what they wanted to do, coming off a tough loss in Vegas. You want to get the first goal. You want to feel good about yourself, and it's Adam Lowry, his 6th of the year. Assist to Hayden Fleury and Neil Pionk. It's a nice pass from Pionk over to Fleury. Fleury with with a shot. This really doesn't look like a dangerous play. Nice tip by Lowry. Ottinger, I mean, this shouldn't go in. The Jets will gladly accept it. They'll gladly take it as an opening goal, but it's not a great goal. It's got a little bit of an odor attached to it, but for the Winnipeg Jets, that odor is a beautiful one of fresh baked pie. For the Dallas Stars fans, it might be a different kind of pie that you wouldn't necessarily want to eat. Different story altogether there. The Jets lead 1-0 at the 3:16 mark of the first period.
It's been said about me sometimes, Drew, that I'm a nice guy, but there's an odor attached to it. So I know what that feels like. So, yeah, I mean, this was definitely not a goal that Jake Ottinger is going to like. But, Adam Lowry gets body positioning. I think it's on, if I remember correctly, it was on Thomas Harley in front of the net. But it's one of those tips where it kind of just dribbles by, and Ottinger's going left to right, and he just doesn't have enough time, simply put, to get there, right? So yeah, I thought, again, Hayden Fleury, I thought, not just because of this point shot that leads to an assist for him, but I thought he was strong all game long. Like, I just thought, he was very reliable on the penalty kill, blocking shots. We talked about it. He had at least one shot that I can remember in the third period after Scheifele found him, kind of coming in off of the blue line. Right. But yeah, I mean, how many times has the third line come through here, guys? But, this is a game that was screaming for some offense from the Scheifele line. And you mentioned the 2 assists, but, no goals for Scheifele. And again, guys, he's going to make Team Canada. I believe the roster is going to be announced tomorrow, or we think he's going to make Team Canada.
Is it tomorrow?
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Yeah.
Third, yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about, there's recency bias
Wednesday,
here,
actually.
right?
Maybe Wednesday.
It's been lately since he switched over from center to the wing, and he's been dealing with whatever injury he's been dealing with, and same thing goes, like, they just didn't have the pop that we've been used to seeing throughout the most of this year. But yeah, a nice goal to get the goal scoring going. But, that first period, like, the Jets, I thought, were lucky to be ahead at that point.
Well,
like, I
they only had one shot on goal until
what was it, 7-1,
8-1?
Yeah.
No, 7-1, and that was the first shot on net for the Jets. And I joked saying that they weren't super concerned about shot volume, but they wanted to focus on shot quality. And look, it was a good start, right? That's exactly how you wanted to start a game, is to, even though not in the sense that Dallas has the puck and is getting all the shots, right, boys, but the fact that you get that first goal. And look, prior to the loss in Vegas, every time the Jets have scored first this season, they'd won the game. So it was usually a pretty good previously indicator as to whether they would have a good result or not. And it was a big goal in a couple other regards. Adam Lowry, as you guys know, I like some potpourri, moves past Andrew Ladd, so captain passing captain, 7th all-time on the goal list with 111 as he in his career. And
how many of those goals, Dave, are right in front of the net, like this one was? Right?
a lot
110 out of 111.
A lot of them. Although I will note that Andrew Ladd did it in about half as many games as Adam Lowry did it. And on with the secondary assist, Neil Pionk got to 200 in his career in the NHL.
Congratulations to him. 1-0 at that point for the Jets. It lasts up until the 17:06 mark of the first period. That's when Dallas ties the game. Wyatt Johnston, his 4th of the year, assist to Thomas Harley and Jason Robertson in one of the weirder, slower developing 2-on-1s in NHL history. Just a bit of a comedy of errors. Just Dylan DeMello catches an edge, which takes him out of the play. Really bad timing for that. Josh Morrissey pinches, and he gets caught up in the flow and gets caught up in traffic, which somehow leaves Kyle Connor as the last man back for the Winnipeg Jets in trying to defend. Well, he gave it his all, but in this instance, it was not enough, as it's a real nice pass by Harley to Johnston, and Johnston's a real nice player. Only 4 goals on the year for him so far, but he's able to tuck this one under the bar and beat Connor Hellebuyck to tie the game up at 1 goal apiece, which is where it ended after 20 minutes, Ezzy. Or Dave, I guess, on this one now at this point.
Oh, you're giving it to me?
Yeah, well, I did Ezzy before, and now it's your turn.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, look.
You can give it back to Ezzy. You can pass it forward. You can pass it back.
I'm ready to go. I mean, I can talk about this goal if you want, Dave, and then you can come in. Like, I think it was a bit of a broken play, right? It was a bit of a broken play.
For sure.
And as you mentioned, Dylan DeMello, I think, was it Robertson that he got tied up with? It was kind of hard to see who he got tied up with because it was outside of it was like outside at the bottom of the screen. So it was kind of hard. It looked
Robertson.
Yeah, was it Robertson, Dave? Okay, thanks. I wasn't sure at first. I thought he just like caught an edge and fell down. Like I wasn't really sure. And then obviously Dan Robertson, being the pro that he is, let us know that he got tied up with Robertson. And like, so you got Josh Morrissey, who's kind of up there trying to make a play on Johnston. I believe it was Johnston. And then kind of Josh Morrissey gets turned around a little bit. Then you have a situation where it's a 2-on-1 and or actually a 3-on-1. And then Thomas Harley jumps up into the play, and Kyle Connor does not play this well. Like Kyle Connor, like he's in a position where he's the only man back, because we mentioned,
which is shocking in and of itself, Ezzy.
Well, yeah, but we mentioned DeMello was caught up ice, but also Morrissey was tangled up, and he got Wyatt Johnston got body position on him. So then Harley steps up into the play. Was it Wyatt Johnston or on the boards with Morrissey? It might have been Rupe Hintz, actually, now that I think about it, because it was Rupe Hintz that Morrissey got tangled up with kind of around center, and then that allowed Dallas to go in on whatever you want to call it, 3-on-1, 2-on-1. Yeah, it was Hintz. Just looking at the replay here, boys, it was Hintz that put the body on Morrissey, so that kind of took him out of the play. So now Connor's back, and he's got Wyatt Johnston, Thomas Harley, and he doesn't really play it like a typical defenseman would. He's kind of just angling towards Harley, and then it's just like Wyatt Johnston's just open, and Hellebuck has absolutely no chance. So it was just kind of a bunch of a series of unfortunate events, if you will.
Agreed. So it is at that point in time 1-1, and then the Stars get the game-winning goal in the third period. Second period sees no goals scored. The shots on goal in the second period were 10-8. Lots of penalties in that second period. The Jets do successfully kill off that 5-on-3, which occurs when Hayden Fleury takes a tripping penalty. Then Logan Stanley takes his second of the hat trick of minor penalties that he took in tonight's game. Pardon me, that was his third penalty at that point in time. I apologize.
The 5-on-3 was in the second period.
Yeah, 5-on-3 is in the second period with Fleury and then Stanley. The Jets PK, which hasn't been great, was great tonight. 5 for 5 and killing off the minor penalties.
Just quickly here, Drew, I made a note of it here, so I might as well mention it, or nobody's ever going to hear my great note that I took. But you guys remember Morgan Barron had that great shorthanded scoring chance late in the first period. Like you mentioned, that was Stanley's second minor. Yes. And just wanted to make a note of it because it's Heiskin and Dave who he beats. So me and you are always beating the Morgan Barron drum. Obviously, he had a bad giveaway against Vegas, but just wanted to mention that, like in a game in which the Jets did not have a lot going offensively, I just wanted to mention Morgan Barron was out there working hard and creating chances, in this case on the penalty kill.
Yeah, absolutely right. So the Jets get out of the second period despite being in that penalty trouble, no blood, and then they get into the third period. They get a power play opportunity themselves. That's when Jamie Benn goes off for high sticking. It was a real lousy power play by the Winnipeg Jets, really generated, I don't think, any shots and no real zone time. They had trouble setting up, missing Nikolai Ehlers, especially when it comes to zone entries. But then Mason Marchment, his 10th of the season, it's the game-winning goal, assist to Thomas Harley and Jake Ottinger. So there you go, Jake Ottinger both getting the win and an assist for the Dallas Stars. It's a real nice shot and a real nice play by Mason Marchment, who's a real nice player. It's also our Seagram shot of the game.
The Seagram shot of the game.
I was at a wedding last night, and I said to the good folks who were pouring drinks, nothing but Seagram's products for me. And I like it, nice, and were willing to abide by my demands when it came to that. It's amazing what people will do at an open bar. So they will.
Shout out to our cousin Leah.
Yes, our cousin Leah and our friend Jared. They got married last night. It was a beautiful weekend of events. So indeed, so Seagram's products only for me at the wedding.
Did you take my advice though, Drew, as someone who's emceed a wedding? Did you take my advice?
What was your advice?
Drink as much as you can.
Oh, yeah, after I gave up the microphone is when I decided I'd have a few more to drink. No, I kept it as responsible as I had my kids with me at the wedding. They were invited guests also, so I kept it on the responsible side last night. But anyways, Mason Marchment, beautiful goal here. This is no chance for Connor Hellebuck. Josh Morrissey plays it pretty well. He gets back, he gets into good body position, and then Mason Marchment just sort of boxes him out like he's going for a rebound in the post, and he turns and he fires on the backhand, and it's just an absolute gorgeous shot, and no chance, like I said, for Hellebuck. And it's just, again, one of those games where the Jets feel like they are, they got to get it into overtime. They got to find a way to get it there. Can't lose it in regulation. They end up giving up this goal relatively late, with about 7.5 minutes to go, and it ends up being the game-winning goal. Ultimately, the Stars put another one into the empty net, Dave, but it's a 3-1 final after Marchment makes it 2-1 here.
Yeah, and it's just one of those times, again, that the Jets just looked. I think this is where the speed element came in, right? Dylan DeMello tries to intercept the puck. And the truth is, ultimately, if you're the Jets, you have good body positioning, right? Like Josh Morrissey is beside Mason Marchment. Now, 6'5", Mason Marchment is kind of Morrissey. He's beside him, but then I honestly think that Morrissey wasn't sure where the puck was, because you can almost see like he kind of was like, oh, we're beside each other. Where's the puck? And I think he kind of lost it. And so I don't know if he was expecting Marchment to make the play that he did. But you got to give Mason Marchment credit. That's really nice to shield the puck the way he did, to disguise it, and then to go up and over Connor Hellebuck, who had a hell of a good game and kept his team in it. But the Lowry line, boys, one of the things that is becoming a common theme now. Remember, through 15 games or something like that, the Lowry line didn't have, I think they had 1 goal against at 5-on-5. Well, that number is ballooned because now we're seeing them on for a lot more goals against, and that's happening across the board where lines are, the team is being scored on more frequently and not scoring as many goals. The big symptom of part of this problem the Winnipeg Jets are experiencing right now. But yeah, it's like I said, Appleton's in on the forecheck, Lowry's in on the forecheck, Niederreiter. I mean, it's a 3-on-1, right, guys? Like, it's not as if the Jets are outnumbered. Marchment is the one man. It's a good pass.
1v1.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a nice pass by Thomas Harley. We've mentioned that name a couple times already, right, Ezzy? And so Harley makes that pass, gets it through past DeMello, who just reaches for it, and then Marchment does it all himself. Unusual goal for sure, but really nice, and just unfortunate because that ends up being the game-winning goal.
Here's a hot take. I'm not a Dallas Stars fan by any means, and Thomas Harley to me looks like a guy who could be in Team Canada Olympic conversation. I don't think I'm out of bounds by saying that, guys. Like, Harley has turned into an excellent defenseman. He is obviously, he gets overshadowed a little bit by Miro Heiskanen, and obviously Esa Lindell's been there for a while.
Is he
right?
6'7"? I don't know. Is he? If he's not 6'7", does it really count?
Fair enough. But I'm just saying, Harley, like Dave said, like, it was a stretch pass. It was a little bit of a knuckle puck. It wasn't like a crisp, hard pass, but he did a good job of getting it up to Marchment. He saw that he was streaking, and Dave's right. I think Morrissey got lost a little bit. And how many times have we talked about it, Dave, where it got, and you mentioned, Marchment shielding the puck. That's what I made a note of. I just said excellent body positioning. Like you said, he's got the height advantage, the reach advantage on Morrissey. And how hard is it for Marchment? Yeah, I love Marchment. You wanted,
if I recall correctly, you were hoping the Jets would sign him after he left as a free agent from Florida.
Yeah, I was. And obviously, the son of the late Brian Marchment, former Winnipeg Jet, former San Jose Shark. I think he was scouting in the Sharks organization, if I'm not mistaken, right, Dave? At one point, I remember seeing him at a draft. But yeah, Marchment's an excellent player. And look, guys, this Stars team, this is one of the teams that the Jets are going to have to overcome to get to the promised land, so to speak, right? The Minnesota Wild, the Dallas Stars, the Colorado Avalanche. These are
the first place in the NHL, Minnesota Wild, Ezzy.
I can't believe it. I really can't. I realize there's a lot of talent on that team, but I did not see that coming. That's for sure.
I don't think anybody saw that coming. And for the record, Dallas Stars with the win, now 6 points back of Winnipeg with 2 games in hand. So again, you bank the points. You're happy with where you are overall. They're 18-7 now, Drew?
That's right.
But which is still a ridiculous record.
It's still a ridiculously good record. I mean,
but you need to get back in the win column. You need to get back to winning 2/3 as opposed to losing 2/3. It's sometimes it's that simple. You're absolutely
You've got
right
3 wins in your last 9 games. So the Jets team needs to get back to Winnipeg and get back into the.
I feel like they're going to pound St. Louis on Tuesday night.
We'll talk about that.
Got the new coach bump right now, Ezzy.
Yeah, they do with Jim Montgomery. You're right about that. We'll come back and wrap up this edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. It's a Sunday evening. Jets lose 3-1 to the Dallas Stars.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
so much of your money.
Now, you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Sunday evening, welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. We're back in action again on Tuesday night as the Jets finally play a home game against the division rival St. Louis Blues. So we're looking forward to getting back with everyone for that. Unfortunately, it was a bad night for the AHL version of the Winnipeg Jets as well, better known as the Manitoba Moose. Dave M will give us a brief update in tonight's.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Manouk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
It was not quite as bad. I'm willing to do one today, Ezzy. You know why, Andrew? Because it wasn't nearly as bad as the last game for the Manitoba Moose. And while they didn't win the hockey game, they played much better. Thomas Milic got the net for the first time. They gave Capo Kakinen a rest. He played the 4 straight games. Other than that, not really much changed. But the Moose started off the game. Unlike the last one, they were real good. 4-0 shot edge. But Devin Cooley, who's from California, he was excellent in the game on Friday, and he continued that. And as someone made a mention to me on Twitter, Blue Sky or whatever, Devin Cooley, if folks will remember, was also very good for the Milwaukee Admirals in the playoffs against the Manitoba Moose. So he's a goalie that has done well here in Manitoba or against a Manitoba-based AHL team. Very unusual in the second period. Moose got off to a great start, outshooting them 6-0. Couldn't score on Cooley. And then Dominic Tonnato, newly made minted captain of the team, he was called for an elbow and given a major. Very unusual. I watched the replay. I didn't see the elbow. Like, he kind of breezed by the guy. But, I mean, again, the refs made the call. So that was a 5-minute major and a 10-minute misconduct. And so he was gone. And the Moose managed to, similar to the Jets, the similar story, the Moose managed to kill the major. They actually had a 5-on-3 because Dawson Barteau took a penalty with a minute to go in the major. So they actually killed a 5-on-3 successfully. And then just kind of some unusual luck. Martin Ferk scored kind of a lucky, the puck kind of squipped out to him. He put it past Thomas Milic. And then one of the weirdest goals, Brad Lambert pulls the puck into the zone, takes a shot. It hits between CJ Cease and one of the Calgary defenders, goes up, sits on Devin Cooley's back, like literally sits on his shoulder.
like a parrot?
Yeah, it was very weird. Lands on the goal line, and then Parker Ford appeared to put it in, but when I watched the replay, I'm like, I don't think he touched it. So they credited Parker Ford with the goal. Then I thought maybe Brad Lambert would have gotten the goal, but I said it's possible it went in off CJ Cease and he caused the deflection. Sure enough, CJ Cease ended up getting credited after the game with the goal. So it was a 1-1 game. And then with the Moose down 2-1, Dmitry Kuzmin, the Jets prospect, he's a third rounder. He scored his first of the season to tie the game. And then a little controversy because I almost called them the Calgary Flames, the Calgary Wranglers, they got a third goal in that period. So no goals through 40 minutes, and then 5 in the final 20. But unfortunately for the home team, it was the Wranglers who got the third goal, which turned out to be the game-winning goal, and that was a somewhat controversial goal because there was thought that Thomas Milic was being interfered with, couldn't reset, but ultimately the refs, they don't review in the AHL, but they had a conversation, decided it was a good goal, which is how they called it on the ice, and that's how the game ended. 3-2 for Calgary, and now the Moose will prepare for Belleville to conclude this 6-game homestand.
And we should also mention that Drew is currently wearing Wranglers.
Hey, I got to go put on my cowboy boots and got to go bale some hay or something like that.
But as Joe from Winnipeg would want me to mention, because he's Italian, Dominic DiVincentis, he's 4-0 with the in the ECHL with Norfolk Admirals. So he is looking real good. I haven't watched his games, watched some of the highlights, I've watched some clips, but 4-0 for the young first-year pro. And so we best not lose sight of him and what he's doing down in Norfolk.
Joe from Winnipeg's Italian. Drew likes to eat Italian.
I'll be eating Italian as soon as the show is over.
We had pizza and lasagna for dinner as well. So in that case, we'll let everyone go enjoy their Sunday evenings and their Sunday meals. And thank everyone for joining us for this edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. A big thank you to our sponsors because they make this show, the Saturday show, the website, a possibility. That, of course, is our friends at Play Now. They are the title sponsor. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, City Place, and Seagram support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. Plenty more to come on the website, illegalcurve.com. Once Dave finishes his Italian meal, of course. We'll be back on Tuesday night for another edition of the post-game show after the Jets and the Blues. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, tell your family, like I did when I was doing the MC duties at the wedding last night, that the best place to be on Saturday mornings and after each and every Winnipeg Jets game is the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you again on Tuesday night. For Drew Mandel, actually, I am Drew Mandel. For Dave Manouk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Thanks, everyone, for watching. This has been the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow at Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.